This is a piece called Monolog, and it was written by my father in 1993. That was actually a year before I came to live in Holland, and it was during our war. So maybe I will take the microphone. And I'm actually more and more happy that I wrote a story which I can read now, because you are so nicely in a big number here, so I'm thankful that I did that. After 23 years living in Holland, I have been reminded that I may share a story with the ones that we call refugees nowadays. Soul searching and trying to understand how all this makes any sense. Good guys, the bad guys, the people that save you, and perspective. And there are only questions left. Born a stranger, living as one, searching for home, but only finding a solution in adjusting the lens. All other ways lead to suffering. Whenever I participate in the discussion about the current situation of immigration, I get always somehow reminded by somebody but you are also a foreigner and you also fled a war. And every time I hear that, it's like I hear it for the first time. I never get used to that. It's like there's a shiver that goes through my spine. And I think like, did I flee a war? Does one ever flee a war? And then the story goes that first evening news where we heard that the war has started in Slovenia, I remember feeling like, oh no, wait a second, I have no time for this. A war? I mean, what does that mean? I need to do my diploma, I need to learn my new concerto, and there's a driver's license exam. My father has cancer, he needs to go to have his operation, and I have a life. What do you mean, war? War is Germans and partisans and black and white documentaries and movies about the heroes who lost their lives for our freedom. Our freedom, which always seemed will be forever. We were brothers and equals, and together we were building our future. And what do you mean Tito was not good? I am a born Tito's pioneer and Tito's youth. And I remember once I was running with the Relay for his birthday, because that's what we did every year for the 25th of May, which was not his birthday. But we called it that way. And you know, we were all learning in school to be the best pupils so that we can run that year. And I was dreaming of seeing him close. My mother sang for him one New Year's Eve. She cried when he died. I never saw her cry before. Suddenly it was all his fault, they said later. But he said no to Stalin. There are people who are born to start wars. There are others that end them. There are the fortunate ones that get taken away, forced a gun into their hands. There are people who get benumbed. There are people who help. There are people that take advantage. There are the ones who think of solutions. There are ones who fight, the ones that motivate others, who give their lives for the freedom of others. There are people who are born in a war, and the ones who carry on wars of their ancestors. Some get really stinking wealthy, and others lose everything they ever had. There are people who would never leave their homes, and others who run from the madness. There are ones who don't know who they would fight. And then, there are the people who refuse to participate. Because wars are for winners and losers, and you have to just believe in that. You have to believe in heroes and in villains. And wars never end. Following the long-gone Ottoman Empire times, the Turks are still fighting the wars in Balkans. They say the Serbs, now you have to concentrate, the Serbs are more Turkish than the Bosnians, who are more Slavic than the Serbs, but they are Muslim. They converted to Islam so they would live in peace. And the stubborn Serbs, I don't know, maybe they were the same people, it's just the geographical difference. I don't know what it makes the difference, but they fought for 600 years. Men were slaughtered, women were raped for hundreds and hundreds of years. Many of them stayed with a child. Who is who? And who will represent whom in the next war? At the end, we all end up fighting ourselves because we are too similar after all this time. The pure chance wanted me to come to Holland and study. My violin was my boat. In a time when Yugoslavia was hermetically closed, a miracle happened, and I felt like I see divided, and I walked away. I remember the bus, very late at night, my father lifting me with his own hands onto the first step of the bus. I was so happy. I had to make it to Budapest to fly to Holland. No civilian could fly from Belgrade at that time. I don't remember the plane. Actually, I don't remember anything of my journey. I just remember Marilene and Jan Michiel Otto, and I remember sleeping in the Van Egenstraat near the Vondelpark in Amsterdam, and the smell of their house and that Dutch coffee. We call it in Serbia Turkish coffee. I remember I need to leave already the next day to Rotterdam, and it felt almost like the most difficult part of the journey. Like, no, not that little, still that little bit. And I remember there Erika de Wijs, the magical unicorn of the Rotterdam's Conservatives. She was the coordinator of the students. I still have the blanket she gave me. It's like in pieces almost, but nobody can touch Blankie. That's my Blankie, and I have one spoon from her. I remember people looking strangely at me and wanting to help, and me thinking, oh, thank you, how kind of you, but I didn't even feel that I needed help. It is silence in my head and a vacuum of feelings. It's all fine. I'm here to study and show that I played the violin so good. The only problem is that nobody seems to know who I am. I learned that I don't come from Yugoslavia because it was a very confusing answer. It was a country that started disappearing. I learned that when they asked me where from ex-Yugoslavia, with still a little hope on their faces, I had to make a joke and say, where the bad guys come from. Humor always made it easier. You relax people, they take it in, oh, she comes from Serbia, but then they would just say, oh, not knowing what to ask next. It seemed everybody back then knew where the bad guys come from, and humor saved me. I learned to start calling the place where I come from Serbia, although it never felt right. It still doesn't. I was born in Yugoslavia in 1972. It was paradise on earth. Tito said no to Stalin, but we were still communists. Had salaries equal to Western countries, could travel anywhere around the whole globe without a visa. We have been one of the 5 countries in the world who were non-aligned. So we didn't belong anywhere. We were free in the Cold War. Tito took care of everything. He just didn't manage not to die. Because the moment he died, somebody changed the light. I was born in Yugoslavia as a minority in a province of Serbia, one of the 6 republics of Yugoslavia, former republics of Yugoslavia, where ethnic minorities lived in peace and prosperity. Everybody was listening to the daily news in their own language. Children that felt Hungarian went to Hungarian schools. There was a Hungarian theater, Hungarian newspapers, radio stations, television stations. And my father, Tibor Hartig, a grandson of an Austrian nobleman from Vienna, who strayed with a Czech cook, whose son married a Hungarian. You do the math. My mother, Julija Hartig, a daughter of a Hungarian from Transylvania, who married a Slovak girl. All that in Vojvodina, a territory that was a part of Austro-Hungarian Empire until the end of the First World War. Then it became a part of First Yugoslavia. People stay, borders change, traditions stay, borders staying, people change, people go, and my Vojvodina is not there anymore. It became a refuge to new people and new traditions after the last war. My parents wouldn't know anymore what nationality to call me. So, though my mother tongue was Hungarian, they decided that I was a Yugoslav, like we all were back then, and I shall go to a school where the majority goes, in Serbo-Croatian, which then was one language and now is two after the last war. However, even though we were all the same, and brothers and equals, I was different because my name was foreign and I could speak that funny language that my ancestors all had in common. It sounded silly to the ear with its exaggerated rhythm, so I was very much made fun of. I decided I will never speak that language again one day I came back from school. Still, my mother speaks Hungarian to me, and I mainly communicate back in Serbian or English because she lives in Australia. Now, thinking about it, I can't stop being amazed that even in such a multicultural environment, the majority never got comfortable about the ones that are different. I'm still kind of ashamed of not being what everybody else is. That feeling never left me. Even when it got even more ironic, and I got the shame of coming from where the bad guys come from. And I still keep asking myself, where do the bad guys come from? It is not my war. I'm a Dutch citizen now for almost 13 years. Still, occasionally when I say my name, people ask me if it is my husband's name. No, it is Hartig. It means savory in Dutch language and salted and powerful in taste. But no, it's my name. There's a mechanism in us that tries to give a definition to everything and everybody. We have a need to give identity to everyone. We ask each other, can you identify yourself? Do you have the identity card? When does it expire? We need to name each other and define the similarities and differences. We are wired that way. But there are more and more of us who are chasing borders and stepping always seemingly on the wrong one because there are no borders that protect us or make us safe. There are more and more of us born homeless and countryless. I believe we are the ones free, if we choose to be. My war was, and still is, the one not knowing why we need to belong to a group, country, or a community, and why can't we all be immigrants and refugees coming from one galaxy and living this life, waiting for the visa, going to another one in peace. Thank you. I just discovered the day after I wrote this text that they found 7 planets that look very much like so it's not a very, very silly idea. Any questions?
Can we get this in print?
Yeah. Sorry?
I would like to have this in print.
I would like you to have this in print.
It's on video.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can leave your contact and I can send it to you.
Okay, I would like.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Then let's go and have live in peace.
Een grootste licht.
Ja.
De video staat op de Facebookpagina van Splendor.
Op de Facebookpagina van Splendor?
Ja, die staat er nu al.
Oké, maar zal ik toch mijn gegevens dan aan haar geven, aan Julija?
Ja, dat staat toen natuurlijk vrij.
Ja, voor de tekst.
Uiteraard.
Want
Maar
bij
ik dacht,
Splendor,
ik zeg het toch even.
ja, want dan gaat het er ook een keer weer af bij Splendor natuurlijk.
Ik denk van niet.
Nee?
Nee, dat blijft gewoon op de timeline, zeg maar.
Ah ja, maar ik vind het een gedicht. En ik vind het werkelijk een prachtige literaire, poëtische tekst en ik vind het fantastisch.